Meetup segment or finalized in Meetup. Are all of you on Meetup? Okay. If not, even if you join and make me happy and get me to 4,100, I will really appreciate it. But even if you don't, you should be able to see the page for this event. I'll post the link to the Codelabs, or you can just go look at codelabs.developers.google.com, and in there look for web as a category, and you'll find a ton of them on there. However, I will post a list of Codelabs into our Meetup page that will specifically kind of outline your first progressive web app, then service workers, then progressive web app with Firebase and Polymer, etc. So you have some choices. All of those are Codelabs you can do completely on your own. You just need a laptop and a charger. And if you get stuck, we're going to be around. Let me first introduce mentors. Gautam over there. Gautam is a wearer of many hats. He is dev evangelist at Condé Nast. He runs the JavaScript meetup. He's just jump-started the PWA meetup, so if you like this topic, go join it. And he is a Node.js expert, plus he's been trying to play with Glitch. So he would be one of your mentors. Where's Michael Salati? Oh, there's Michael. Okay, so Michael over there is an Angular expert. He's also, okay, I'm going to put that on your head. He knows Angular. He's also doing a talk on PWA with Angular, but after that he'll be available if you need any help with any of the Codelabs around that. I put myself down as one of the mentors because I've done all this stuff, but I seem to be running around like a chicken with its head cut off. However, if you grab me, I'll be happy to help. You can also ask any of the other speakers from today, Jeff, Pete when he's back, Michael, any of them would be willing to help. So I'll put those Codelabs out there. These are for folks who just want to start coding. If you are just interested in coding, feel free to spread out. We can take this room, we can take the space in there. I can even find out if we can use that space, Nicole. Nicole? I don't know if you can hear me. Hang on. Can we use that room? The glass room?
Yeah, you have all free reign of the office.
Okay.
Except for this one, you can't use this
Okay.
everywhere.
So, you heard her. Be respectful of the space, otherwise we'll never be able to come back. But you can use the room inside there. We're going to clear the space inside that place, so if you're only coding, go there and get started now. If you're not, if you want to hear a couple of things before you jumpstart, we have 3 talks. They will all be like 20 minutes. Hopefully, some might be a little longer, plus 1 lightning talk. And what we want to do is basically give you a sense of what front-end frameworks exist or platforms exist for you to play with PWA. So the first is going to be from Tessa. I know I saw Tessa a minute ago. Oh, there. Okay, so Tessa Park. How many of you know about Vue.JS? Okay, so I wanted to learn about Vue for the longest time, and me being the selfish person I am, I'm like, hey, if I can get someone to come talk about it, that's the way I learn. Tessa volunteered, she was volunteered to come and do a 10-minute talk on Vue. One of the reasons is Vue is one of the frameworks that has PWA support built in, and so kind of knowing a little bit about it means you can go play with that if you like. After that, we're going to have Pirjan. Am I saying that? Okay, so here's another person that I have volunteered in the past, but I'm super, super happy because we actually had him come speak when it was Hyperdev. We had him come speak when they first had this platform called Hyperdev many months ago, which is now Glitch. And he's one of the lead designers and developers on Glitch. For those of you who don't know, Glitch is a platform that's from Fog Creek, the guys behind all the amazingness of Trello and God knows everything that I've ever used to get us become a better programmer. But Glitch is a really, really, really good platform for anyone who wants to get started without having to think about the complexities of deployment and dependencies. It kind of helps you through a lot. Plus, this is one of the best things about it. I hope I'm not saying the wrong things. It has the ability for you to take someone else's example and remix it, right? So you learn a lot by hacking other people's stuff, which is cool. There are some PWA examples in there for you to get started. So Pirjan's going to set us up by telling us about Glitch. Then you can go into other Codelabs in there. And then finally, we're going to have Michael walk through literally a Codelab on how you build a PWA with Angular. And if you like that, then you can hang out for that, listen to it, and then go hack on that. And finally, Gautam just launched Weather PWA. Do I have that right? Weather PWA is a Glitch project that you can remix, which actually does service workers 3 ways, apparently. 5 ways. Okay, I knew it. I knew I'd forgotten the number. So it tries to implement service focus 5 different ways as a Vue project that you can explore. And why would you not want to do it when you can hassle it right here? So those are your options. Whoever wants to start coding, that room, back room, feel free to take your laptops and go. I'll post the Codelabs right away. The others, we're going to start with Tessa. So how many of you want to stay here? Okay, so those of you who want to stay here, once the others have moved out, please feel free to redistribute yourself so you're near a power socket so that you can also kind of, code along or listen to it and try stuff out. But otherwise, let's get started. And we're going to have 2.5 hours of this. There will be coffee coming at 2. Come here. All right, thank you.
Hi everyone, so my name is Tessa and today I'm going to be showing you the basics of how to use Vue. So first, a brief introduction. Who am I? I'm a software engineer and a web developer, and I also help organize the Angular, React, and now Vue.JS meetups. And we have a special week of events coming up that I'll go over at the end. So what is Vue? Vue is a declarative, performance, and progressive JavaScript framework. If you're familiar with other front-end frameworks, it's easy to pick up quickly and can be incrementally adopted into most stacks. How does Vue compare to some other popular front-end frameworks and libraries? Since Vue and React have PWA support built into their CLIs, and the Angular team is working on this as well, let's see how these solutions stack up against each other. So some ways that Vue is similar to React include they both share virtual DOM, they both have reactive and composable Vue components, they both extrapolate concerns into companion libraries, and you can use readouts of both of them. In the case of Vue, it's a library called Vuex. And they both have support for native rendering. In React, that would be React Native, and in Vue, it's a library called Vx. And Vue is similar to Angular in that you can use TypeScript in both libraries. So what are some ways in which Vue differs from React and Angular? Well, Vue often has slightly faster performance due to a lighter virtual DOM, and automatically knows which child components to re-render, as opposed to using pure components or something like that in React. Vue prefers HTML with templating over render functions with JSX, and provides access to scoped CSS and single file components. Vue also officially supports many of its companion libraries in order to make sure that they stay up to date with the core Vue library. And it's easier to get started with Vue because, as you'll soon see, to start, all you have to do is add a Vue scripts tag. Now, how does it differ from Angular? While Vue offers TypeScript support, the experience is not really that different without it. It might be very slightly faster than Angular, but they're both really fast. However, Vue is much more lightweight and also less opinionated. Vue also has a smaller learning curve because you just need to be familiar with HTML and ES5. Before we move on, I'd also like to briefly mention Angular 1 because Vue took a lot of inspiration from this framework's style when developing its syntax. Some ways that Vue differs from AngularJS include that Vue has a less complex API and design. It's less strict than AngularJS about application structure. It's designed with one-way data flow between scopes, and more clearly distinguishes directives, which encapsulate DOM manipulations, from components, which have their own view and data logic. And last but not least, Vue has better performance and optimization than AngularJS. Okay, so how do we get started? First, you want to import Vue into your HTML via a scripts tag, and then create a new instance of the Vue app using the Vue constructor function. You need to pass it in an options object, and the options object can hold many things. In this case, we're going to pass in an element and some data. So what does this mean? On the left, we have our JavaScript, and on the right, we have HTML. Sorry, I know it's a little hard to see on the screen. Okay. So, oops, sorry guys. Alright. You'll notice that the selector assigned to L on the left matches the div with the corresponding ID on the right. So that means that we've anchored our Vue app to this div which means that everything inside is now reactive. What does reactive mean? It means that changes in data emitted by one component will flow through the app to any other components listening to those changes. Notice that the data property message on the left is reflected in the double curly braces in the HTML on the right. This is how we interpolate data in Vue. Under the hood, the active is wrapped by Vue, so that it knows how to reference this message subproperty without needing a chain of parent object references. In other words, we don't have to do app.data.message. You can just use message, and it knows what that is. So now this interpolated message property is reactive, so if we change it, then the app will re-render. But how does Vue know when to re-render? When you pass in the plain JavaScript object to the Vue app instance's data option, Vue converts all of the properties into getter and setter pairs using the ES5 object's define property method. That means also that Vue can't be used in IE 8 or earlier. These allow Vue to track dependencies and get notified when properties are either accessed or modified, and every Vue component has a corresponding watcher that marks all touch properties as dependencies when the component is rendered. This allows the dependency setter to notify the watcher when it's triggered, which causes that specific component to be rendered. But one important thing to note is that because of the way JavaScript works, you can't detect properties that are added to the data object after the Vue app or component has been instantiated. So what does this mean for you? You have to add all necessary root level properties to the data object literal, the thing inside the Vue constructor. This object right here. So you have to add all of your root level objects to that because you can't add them dynamically after instantiation. Now let's say you had a data property and the value of one of those properties was an object or something. You can change the values of that after instantiation. It's just the root level properties of the data object that can't be changed. So note that as in JavaScript, we can interpolate expressions pretty much anywhere that we can put a value. So if in our app we add the methods property and create a say hi method and invoke it in the HTML, the evaluated output of that method will get rendered to the DOM. So this is what the elements would look like. You can also bind to HTML attributes using a directive. Directives are prefixed with a V and a dash to demarcate that they're special Vue attributes that give the rendered DOM special reactive behavior. The vbind attribute basically ensures that this element's title attribute will always be the same as whatever the now property in the Vue app is. So when we hover over the text, I mean, obviously this isn't the current time because this is a PowerPoint animation, but theoretically it would look something like this. The title is dynamically created and placed on the DOM at that moment in time. You can also use binding to alter an element's class list and inline styles. So for example, here I'm binding to the class attribute and adding a class of green when isGreen is true, which in this case, it will always be true. And actually, there's no need to write out v-bind so verbosely every time because Vue has this great shorthand colon syntax. So this is what the rendered page might look like. Like other frameworks, Vue also offers conditional rendering and collection rendering through loops. And instead of using Vue and views in your for loops, you can use Vue of views to keep things more consistent with JavaScript's iterator syntax style if you prefer. And if you use v-if with v4 on the same element, then v4 takes higher precedence by default. That means that the v-if conditional will be tested during each iteration of the for of or for in loop. So that's useful if you want to render only some nodes on your list selectively. If instead you want to conditionally render the entire list of items, then you can place the v-if on some kind of like wrapper element or a wrapper template tag. Vue also has a vshow directive that works very similarly to v-if. The difference is that if an element with vshow will always be rendered, and it will remain in the DOM. Basically, all it does is toggle the display CSS property of the element on and off, whereas VIF will actually add and remove a DOM element. So VIF you can consider to be more real conditional rendering, because it ensures that any event listeners and component children are properly destroyed and recreated every time that you toggle it, while vShow is always rendered and just hidden. So if you've rendered a DOM element with VIF and vShow, and then you hide them, this is what you might see on the Elements tab of DevTools. So on the VIF side, we have just a commented outline, and on the vShow side, we still have the DOM element here, but just display property is set to none. In fact, if the condition is false on the initial render for a VIF, nothing will happen. It won't load anything, there won't be any comment there, because VIF is very lazy. So when would you use one over the other? Generally, you should use VIF if you have some condition that you don't expect to be toggled very often, whereas you would use vShow if you do expect it to be toggled often, because VIF has a higher cost for toggling on and off, and vShow has a higher initial render cost. Another thing to note about vShow is that it doesn't have an else condition, and you can't use it with the template tag. We can use another Vue directive, vOn, to attach event listeners that invoke methods to the DOM. Note that we only update the state of the app and we don't touch the DOM. Instead, we focus on the underlying logic and let Vue handle any DOM manipulation. Note also that vOn has its own shorthand syntax. So instead of using v-on : we can use the commercial @ symbol, and that's the same thing. So what that might look like is, here's some text with a button, and when you click on the button, it changes the text. Finally, Vue does provide two-way binding between form inputs and the app state with the vModel directive. So the end result looks something like this. And now you're all caught up on the rudimentary Vue basics. Okay, now typically with Vue, you wouldn't write out all this code by hand, because why would you bother when the CLI can do it all for you? So to get the Vue CLI, you can globally install the Vue CLI package, and Adi Osmani recently released this official PWA template to the CLI that you can access using the PWA template option. And then, like, this is an example template project. Sorry. And if you're interested in learning more about Vue or the CLI, stay tuned, because now I want to quickly go over the upcoming meetups that I mentioned at the beginning of my talk. So next week, from Monday through Wednesday, the Vue, React, and Angular NYC meetups are putting together a series of events called Discover Week. And the whole idea of this is it's a series of meetups that target people that maybe aren't the most familiar with these frameworks. So Discover Week comprises Discover Vue, Discover React, and Discover Angular from Monday through Wednesday, all at 6:15 p.m. at iHeartRadio Theater. Michael will also be speaking there. And also on August 22nd at the Microsoft Technology Center at 6:30 p.m., we'll be having our inaugural Vue NYC kickoff meetup, and we will be featuring Evan Yu, the creator of Vue. And I've heard he's a really good speaker. So if you have any questions about any of these events or interested in speaking at or helping out at any of these events, please feel free to come speak to me afterwards. And here is a list of references if you want to learn more about what I talked about today.